By imposing tariffs on steel and aluminum from other countries, President Trump is really departing from the usual Republican free trade policy. And that brings us to tonight's Left Hook, Right Jab. Welcome to the studio, former Portland City Commissioner Steve Novick and KXL's Lars Larson. And now's the time for you, the viewer, to get involved and vote. Get out your phone and go to the KGW News app and tap on Vote Now, or go to kgw.com/vote and tell us who you think is winning this debate, Lars or Steve. Gentlemen, here's your question tonight. What do you think of this move, imposing the tariffs? And we start with Lars.
Laurel, I'll tell you something. I don't want to repeat the experience of the 1920s and the Smoot-Hawley Act. One of those two came from Oregon. I can't remember which, but it was a trade war. But I don't think this is a trade war. As a policy, I don't like tariffs at all. They're simply a tax on American citizens. However, as a negotiating technique, I think they're fantastic. And it's very clear from the president's comments today that that's exactly what they are. The president has said, I will consider how other countries treat us, and we'll decide to either add countries to the list of tariffs or add those to the exempt list. Already Canada and Mexico are exempt from those tariffs, but we're negotiating with them about NAFTA. Other countries could be exempt as well, or they could be added to it. Right now, and for a long time, the United States has been ripped off in most of the trade deals. We end up with products that are coming out of America that are taxed heavily going into China, and then their products that are the same products are taxed lightly going into the United States. That has to stop. We get fair trade or nothing else. I think it's a great bargaining technique, Steve.
Well, Lars, at least for once, he's doing something that Wall Street doesn't like. So far, Trump has been a lapdog of Wall Street and an enemy of workers. He passes these huge tax cuts for corporations. He wants to unwind the banking regulations to let the big banks run wild and destroy the economy again. He's attacked organized labor, appointing people to the National Labor Relations Board that are making it harder to organize. At least this is something that Wall Street doesn't like. And maybe if he's willing to buck the Wall Street consensus on trade, he might consider revamping the entire trade structure and change a system which gives companies every incentive to go to places with lousy wages, lousy labor standards, and lousy environmental practices. Now, these particular tariffs are in some ways kind of goofy. Hitting China, which has engaged in unfair trade practices, is fine, but these tariffs are also going to hit countries like Germany, a high-wage country that's our ally. But maybe it's a step in the right direction.
Steve, an enemy of workers and hard to organize? It's hard to organize unions because American workers don't want to be in them. 94% of private sector workers have chosen not to be in unions. It was 30% who chose to be in not just a few years ago. The fact is, this president has been good for American workers. There are now 4 million American workers who've received bonuses of $1,000, $2,000, and $3,000 because of this president's policies. Policies that, by the way, Steve, every single Democrat voted against. That's to your side.
Yes, Lars, a few companies as a public relations gimmick have given bonuses to workers and said that's because of the tax cuts, but they're using most of the money from the tax cuts to buy back stock, which only benefits stockholders, which are mostly rich people. As to unions, when was America great? When unions were strong and represented a third of the American workforce. What's happened over the past 40 years is the corporations have realized you can fire people for trying to organize, which is illegal, but there's no penalties against it. If we had law enforcement for anti-union practices, we'd still have a lot of people in unions.
Okay, this was a close one, gentlemen. Back and forth. Perfect tie, 50-50.
Vote for me.
Thank you so much. We'll see you next
Laurel.
week for Left Hook, Right Jab. Joe, over to you.
Thank you, Laurel.